Hey, you're looking for a podcast where you can hear from some of the great hockey legends, hear them tell some great stories, find out what they're up to today? Well, you're in the right place. The Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast is where you're at. I'm your host, Gino Retta. Today's guest, we got a goodie. A Stanley Cup champion with the New York Rangers in 1994. He led Team USA to the 1996 World Cup of Hockey title, where, by the way, he was named tournament MVP. The first Rangers goalie to record 300 wins, retired as the all-time wins leader before he got bumped by Henrik Lundqvist, was named to the USA Hockey Hall of Fame in 2008. He's Mike Richter. Mike, welcome to the show, my friend. I'm looking forward to catching up with you.
Thanks a ton for having me. Great stuff.
I see you're in your car. Where are you off to? Are you a hockey dad now?
I've been given a timeout from my family. I'll stay out here for the next hour or so and think about what I've done. No, I'm actually on the way up to Lake Placid. I've got a summer place that I'm closing down, and then on to see my son who plays at Union. Has a scrimmage tomorrow, so I'll check that out on Rangers opening night.
Your son plays at Union. Is he a goalie, or is he too smart?
He's not. My boys, I got 3 boys, and they were given free license to do whatever they want by my wife and I, but my wife said no goaltenders. I've had enough. I've watched enough, and it is something else to see the poor parents of the hockey goalies. They sit by themselves, and it was funny when I grew up in Philadelphia. There was just a great goalie, Jim Ralston. His mom was just so easygoing until he was playing, and she'd bring knitting and talk to everybody. But as soon as the puck went across the defensive blue line, she put her head down, scarves and mittens and all kinds of things were flying out of there. She wouldn't look. So she got very productive if we were getting our backsides handed to us.
That's hilarious. One of your old buddies, we've had him on the show a couple of times already, Glenn Healy, who's now running the NHL Alumni Association. He was your partner during the 1994 Cup victory, and he's told some great stories. So this is going to be your opportunity to tell some great stories. Now, he tells me that while you guys didn't officially have a goalie coach, that while he was sitting on the bench, he was actually subbing in as the goalie coach for you. Is that true?
Well, let's just start off at level set here. Everything Glenn Healy says is an embellishment. So we'll start from that low bar. No, Glenn is a great friend, and he was an unbelievable partner. Honestly, partner for me as a goaltender, because he knows the game very, very well, obviously. And we were both, I guess, veterans then, but he was coming off his best season, going to the conference finals. And I have to tell you, he was just such an immense kind of sounding board. We go down the lineup before games, totally unselfish as a teammate from the goaltending perspective, but also just as a team. Like, this is a guy that was such a good glue guy, hard worker, funny guy in the locker room. We sat next to each other. I just, when I think of that team, I think of Glennie so much, and all we did was laugh. We laughed all the time. And, that was the 1 year Mike Keenan was there, and he can be a hard guy to work for. And he brings an awful lot of great things too. But having somebody like Glenn where, you could have some chuckles, it made the season much easier to handle some of the hard parts.
Let's talk about the season. We'll talk about the save in a little while and the rivalry, but I want to start talking about the season. 42 wins, a team record for a storied franchise. This wasn't a team record for the Coyotes or, a younger organization. This was for the original 6 teams. 20 straight games without a loss. Numbers that are unheard of from a goalie standpoint. Today, if a goalie starts 42 games, you're like, oh man, he's a workhorse. You won 42 games. What was that? We'll get to the cup in a minute, to the playoffs in a minute, but what was that season like as it's unfolding? Do you look around and go, holy crap, I can't believe this is actually happening right now?
Well, I think the discipline you have to have as a player, and in particular goalie, is it doesn't matter what you just did. You end up forgetting as quick as you can and then just worrying about the next game. And I think Mike Keenan was fantastic about that. Great, you won 18, 19's tomorrow. And by the way, I will pull your ass if you're not good in that first 5 minutes. And in fact, that is what happened down in Florida. I ended up getting pulled at some point. And, as people were starting to talk about undefeated streaks and whatnot, but realistically, a big part of that was Glenny. I'd get pulled a game. He'd go in and clean up. He might end up having, the fourth goal scored on him, one goal and hit 40 shots or something like that. But because he ended up having the game-winning goal go against him, the loss went to Glenn. And that was part of just what you have to accept as a player, and particularly as a goalie. So it certainly helped my record. But that year, Iron Mike loved to change his goalie sometimes a couple times during the game. And we'd pass each other, getting in and out of the net and going, hey, this is just for the team. You'll be right back in. I can remember being down in Florida, and I think on the 19th shot they scored. And I see Keenan looking at me. I'm going, what? Like, I felt unbelievable. I'm like, what the hell's he doing? I thought it was a timeout or something. He comes over and he's like, sit down. It's like, what? And Glenny looks at me, he's like, just for the team, So I sat there, helmet on, gloves on, sweating, going, all right, next stoppage happens, 2 stoppages, 10 minutes goes by, periods ended. I'm like, what? Look at Glenny. I'm like, hey, Glenny. And he's like, I have no idea what's going on. But at any given time, that was the kind of camaraderie we had to have, or else you go insane.
Glenn Healy imitation, though. I got to tell you, that's pretty impressive.
Oh, it's hilarious stuff. But I mean, in the end, he was doing it to get the team going. You don't always agree with it, but that's life, right? And I think we could take a little bit of a step back from it. The other aspect of this is not only having great teammates like Glenn particularly, but just having a team that good. These guys were that good, and we were able to win sometimes with goaltending, often with defense. Sometimes you just had to out-tough the other team. You saw in the playoffs against Jersey, that was a violent series, and we were able to, go toe-to-toe with a big, heavy opponent. Or other times, we had skill. Our power play led the league all year. You have Zubov and Leachy on the point, Graves in front scoring 54. Good things are going to happen, So you don't win all those games without teammates and an organization around you. I would love to say it was all myself. I tell my kids that every day. But that was a phenomenal team, and great teams always. And you saw it in Florida this year. They can beat you in a number of ways: defense, goaltending, toughness, scoring. But we were pretty well rounded.
You mentioned the playoff series, the New Jersey Devils, and I'll tell you, as a guy who was at that point hosting SportsCenter, it was phenomenal. It was like you couldn't have imagined anything better. Yourselves and the Devils at the Eastern Conference Final. Winner goes to the Cup, loser goes home. You guys were bitter rivals. And if that wasn't enough, it was Brodeur versus Richter, which made it like, are you kidding me? Like, we couldn't have asked for a better matchup. And then the whole Messier thing with the guarantee. I mean, you were in the room. Like, can I set the stage for our audience, and then you give me the insights of what happened to this? The Devils are up 3-2. Rangers are in trouble, and the microphone gets pushed to Messier's face. The Mark Messier Leadership Award goes to him, not for an accident. He's one of the great leaders of all time. We get it. And Mess looks in the camera and says, we're going to go in there and we're going to win game 6. To which all of us in the media are like, did he just guarantee the win? No one guarantees the win. People say, yeah, we're going to go out there and leave everything on the road. No one guarantees it. And we're still talking about it 20 years later, 30 years later. Am I doing the math wrong? 30 years later.
No, you're exactly right. And it's better than that, because the build up to that and the layers of stories, Richter, Brodeur, great. But, then there's just Steph Monteau. He didn't just score 1 double overtime goal. He scored 2 in that series, and they were huge. But the wrestling match that takes place between 2 great teams is awesome. Like, just the momentum shifts within a period, within a couple shifts, a big hit here, a big save there, a timely goal. Oh my God. Now they're on their toes and you're on your heels, vice versa. And just think about it. We played them, I don't know, they're 7 miles away from MSG to then the Brendan Byrne Arena. So we played them, I think, 2 or 3 times in training camp. Big deal, right? It's a mixed team on both sides. but there's a hatred there. They were getting better. We were getting better. We missed the playoffs the year before. They were pretty darn good. We have a new coach. We come in, load it for bear. We start hitting each other. We were number 1 in the league to win the President's Trophy that year. They were number 2. We beat them 6 times during the season and probably played them 8 times before the damn playoffs started. And then to add just kind of flavor to it, we marched through. There is no easy rounds in the playoffs, but we went 4-0 against the other crosstown rivals, right? The Islanders, and they were scrappy. It was, they didn't give us an inch, but we really 6-0 first game, 6-0 the second game. They didn't score their first goal to the third game. So it looks like, and everything's written in the paper about how great we are. We go in and play Washington, who played well, but they beat us 1 game. So we're 8-1 heading into the Jersey series, like Order of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're playing a phenomenal team that's really well coached. They're veterans, they're disciplined, they're scrappy, and they're heavy. And they're not going to roll over and die for us. They hate us and we hate them. So what happens? We march right in there, chest pumped up, and lose the first game in overtime. All of a sudden, holy shit, we're on our heels. And then we win the next one. And then we win, I think the next one, they win. And now back to where you are, we're 3-2. And now there's rumors about Mike Keenan talking about coaching somewhere the next year. The wheels are coming off. All that kind of pent up. Is this team for real? Comes gushing out. And we went from, 5 games prior to that to being untouchable, 8-1. And, I don't know what our 4 goals against was, but it was ridiculous. To we might have 3 periods left in our season.
And you were in trouble in game 6 because the Devils were up 2-1 in that game.
Yeah. And of course, and it's Lemieux who tips one in, and I think Niedermeyer, and I know Scotty now. I didn't know him then. I knew him well to play against. And that is the thing. Their tendencies, what they do, how they react. Bernie Nichols had been on our team. He was a great goal scorer for them. There's the whole thing with Kovalov, and Bernie kind of kicked him when he was down, and it got violent. It got crazy. There was like 10 different stories that you could write about this, but that one became a big one because I do remember afterwards, there's not much to say. They beat us. They're a good team. Like, okay. I think the thing that I really felt more than anything else is we hadn't played our best when we lost. And when we did, we could handle them. And we showed that 6 games during the season. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed a damn thing. And especially doesn't mean you probably should guarantee it. But Mark, to his credit, owned it. He's like, no, I said it wasn't misquoted and all that. But the way it took place was, we were losing a little confidence. Jersey was gaining it. There's rumors about our coach leaving. It was as New York ugly as it gets, quickly. And it was kind of like, does your team think they can do it? And Mark's like, no, we'll win that next game. He's like, how do you know this? Can you guarantee? He's like, I guarantee we can. He was thinking more in terms of, as he says it, I'm talking to the players. Like, I guarantee we have this in us. Don't, jump ship now. And then he's like, I kind of forgot there was 10 million people reading the New York Post, And the funniest thing was, and this was kind of the character of our team, the next day you head into the locker room. I remember staying in the hotel and the doors open. Mike Keenan's there. It's do or die. And I just looked at him. We didn't say a word. He was getting on the elevator. I just started laughing. There's no speech. There's no anything. All the BS is behind you. Go out and play. And Mark, there's this guarantee on the back page, on the sports page, right, is there. I get Captain Courageous says I guarantee it, or whatever the hell it was. And Mark looks at Leachy on the drive over to our pregame. He's like, whoops. I guess I kind of stepped in it, didn't I? And Leachy's like, nice job, Mark. Made our job easy. And so it was really funny because everybody would come in the locker room. We were one of the first ones there. And Joe Kosher comes in, what are you thinking, Mess? And, the next guy, Mess, did you really think? Next guy, are you kidding me? And the last guy, even Neil Smith came in. Of course, the last guy is Mike Keenan comes in and just looks at Mark. And, he had a great deal of respect for Mark. And Mark looking back at him, the whole place just started busting up laughing. And the good news is, at that point, there is nothing to say. You're not running from it.
No.
Go out and execute. And what makes this story, I think, so incredible is he didn't just guarantee it, and he stood behind it. Yeah. He scores 3 goals and the game winner.
Yeah.
Like,
The
That's
tying
put,
goal, winning
that's
goal.
that's putting a bow on it. So that was, I remember him taking that puck that was loose right in the slot, not even looking, turning around, throwing it down center ice, and it's in the air and it's landing just over the red line. I'm going, oh my God, he called it, and this is going to be a hat trick. I'm like, that didn't just happen right in the center of the net, and he goes over and hugs the bench. It was one of the coolest sports moments I've ever witnessed, and I happen to be lucky enough to be on the ice for it.
Get ready for the game with the Domino's $8.99 mix and match deal. Score big with any medium two-topping pizza and any two items like pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Domino's has you covered. Order today from Canada's favorite pizza at domino's.ca. You know what? One of the coolest ones. That was amazing. Phenomenal. Mess guarantees it, gets the hat trick. It was amazing. And clearly it's the game, the guarantee, but I want to get to the save because this was crazy. I mean, to set the stage up, you're now in the cup final. It's game 4, 2-0 Canucks in Vancouver. You guys score. Then Pavel Bure has a penalty shot. You guys are in trouble. You're in Vancouver. This is a rough spot to be. You're up. They're up 2-1.
Yep.
If Pavel Bure scores on and this is Pavel Bure.
Yep.
This is not just anybody. This is Pavel Bure. This is the hands man. This guy can score. This guy is, we make the joke about where's the guy's cup? It's up in the rafters because he turned them inside out. Walk me through when the penalty shot is now called.
Yep.
You're in some trouble in the game, and this could have really put you guys in a real deep hole. And Pavel Bure's got the penalty. Walk me through what went on in your mind through all of that.
Yeah, such a cool moment. That old Vancouver, actually a new Vancouver arena, but the old Vancouver arena was great. The fans are on top of you. They are a passionate crowd. Honestly, you get this kind of mellow vision, at least I did, about British Columbia, and it's beautiful. They're animals, and they were into it. And that team was so scrappy and so good. And Pav was the Connor McDavid over time, just lightning, get you out of your seat. Like Mess said, that's a player I'd pay to see. He is so exciting and so electric. And he had scored a bunch in this all through the season, of course, but also through the playoffs with that speed. But he had great hands to match the speed like a McDavid, right? So he could deke around you or he could shoot, and he did. And he has a kind of an arsenal. And it just wasn't that one deke. It was all kinds of things. So I didn't think it was going to be a penalty shot because it looked to me like it was kind of just a hooking, he wasn't in the act of shooting, whatever that kind of ill-defined ruling is. I was like, come on, man, that seems a little dramatic. Terry Gregson, but you're not arguing with him at that point. And more importantly, doesn't matter. He just called a penalty shot, focus on it. What was cool about it, and I've seen replays of it later on, I think Pav was kind of at the end of a shift and he was tired. And there's all of a sudden, that moment could go either way for both of us. There's pressure on me, there's pressure on him, but it's at home. Here's this gifted goal scorer. He's their leader. Oh, well, all right, now score. And don't forget, back then, they didn't have the overtime breakaways. These just was less penalty shots. So it was a bit of a rarity.
Oh, it was, yeah.
And so he's like cleaning his glass and talking he's just trying to get his air. Meanwhile, I got Esatikin in my ear. He's a really good goal scorer. I'm like, shut up, that Deke. And he's like, sometimes he dekes, sometimes he shoots. I'm just like, oh my God. And Zuby came. He's like, what can I do? And I said, just get rid of Teek. And he's like, Teek, come with me. Sat on the bench. And then you're just trying to play it honest. Like, if I start guessing, he had a very similar move in the All-Star game earlier that year at MSG. And later, John Davidson, a couple of people are like, oh, did you anticipate that? I'm like, no way. He had scored between my legs. He goes high glove sometimes. And of course, he had that really cool forehand deke, which he ended up using. The one thing about him is he's got speed. And I was a good skater. So I came out fast and hard, stopped, and then just tried to keep that kind of critical distance going back, so he wouldn't go around me. But I don't go too fast because then he starts seeing too much net. I'm not a huge guy, and you play the angles as well as you can. I got to match his speed. And he came in pretty fast. And I was able to, match his speed and then take away the shot and then hope he deke, and I was able to get my foot on it. And so, poor Pav, he had scored buckets in that whole playoff.
Come on, poor Pav. You don't feel that sorry for him,
I don't
brother.
feel that sorry for him, but he was a good man because everybody asked you to sign that autograph, and he signs it. He's like that. It was a big moment though, because then you start getting momentum as a team and going one direction as opposed to another. But the Wild
turning point of the series. Come on,
yeah,
Richter.
yeah,
like,
no, it's crucial. But as a goalie, you also have to say, that's cool. Not time to celebrate. Next shot. And that's what you do. And so really, you didn't think about it much during that game. And I heard Keenan describe that largest save of his life and all this. You're kind of like, I hadn't even attended to it in a way because there's just the next shot, the next period, the next game. And then, over the summer, there's the next year. When you retire and you start looking at it, I'm pretty thrilled that we were able to have that cool moment.
No kidding. I tell you what, as a guy who's as a hockey fan first and foremost, but as a broadcaster, that was insane.
It's cool. So, that's a great moment in sports, right? It's a real one-on-one battle, and
surpassed by only one moment, and that is Game 7. The clock ticks down. The New York Rangers, who had been in a drought for 54 years, an original six organization, passionate hockey fans all around the NHL. Rarely do you find fans that are as vocal and as willing to jump down your throat. Listen, fans all around the league are supportive, but in New York, when you don't get the job done, you hear it. Yes. And now you got the job done. You win the Stanley Cup, the first cup to New York in 54 years. What was that like when the seconds finally ticked down and you got the job done? It was over.
I think you imagine this a lot. I mean, go up in the driveway and pretend to be Bernie Perrant when I was growing up in Philadelphia and Bobby Clark and all that. But you can't imagine how incredible it is. And, you're thinking about it in terms of your career, the guys in your locker room, your family, the organization. But then there's just what you don't realize how big it is for the city. I love New York because they care. They know their sports teams. They're into it. And they will let you know when you're not playing well, but they let you know when they're proud of you. And you're wearing New York down your crest. You want to fulfill that kind of responsibility. And that was the first time that you end the season going, I did what I set out to do. There's no tomorrow. There's no, I wish we had. That's what your job is as a professional. And that's what your goal is as an athlete, is to be the best and standing on top of the heap. And it was so much more exciting, enjoyable, fulfilling than I could have even imagined. The ticker tape parade, everything, David Letterman, all those things, but just the feeling with your teammates and the fans of, we did it. We are the best. You have that moment. And there's a great quote by Alexeyev, the old weightlifter from the Soviet Union. He said, that's the white moment in sport. And you will train long and hard the rest of your life just to taste it once again. And you do. That's why you're in business, man. But I think there was one moment that I've seen Mess take the cup and he went over to the boards at one point. He's done it 5 times, so he kind of has this routine down. I was just like, what do you do? But he held it up over his head and brought it to the fans, and they got to touch it. And we had a couple moments like that in and around Manhattan. It's a city that never sleeps and everybody's hustling and rude and all that. But man, there was a big deal of respect that they had. This is the oldest trophy in the business. All the major sports, like, this is the thing, you take it home, you cherish it. It's kind of hallowed, and the respect. People would walk by and go, can I touch it? Like Mess taking over to the fans and kind of saying, hey, we're sharing this together, New York. I thought that was unreal.
Yeah. We're almost out of time, but I just want to get a quick comment from you on the World Cup. You led Team USA to the gold. You're a proud American, obviously. This is a Canadian team that featured Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, Steve Yzerman. You not only you beat them in Montreal, and you won the MVP. What was that like for you? Because that was, I think, it was just 2 years after you guys won the cup, so you were still on your thing. What was that to knock off the rival Canada and that?
I just think that tournament accelerated into just a great tournament so quickly. I mean, you have so much talent on every team. There's 5 teams that go into those tournaments, maybe 6 now. that have realistic expectations of not just medaling, but winning the gold. Russia, of course, Finns, Swedes, US, Canada, of course. And the fact that it ended up the best of three with Canada, they won the first one, we won the next two. It was awesome to play against those guys. You're playing against the best in the world. And that is why I understand the amateur thing, but I love the pros on pros. Just give me the best team that you can possibly produce.
That's not best in the world.
And Canada can produce three of them. Like those guys were so great and such competitors that you have to be great every shift, and that's what you want as an athlete. And it's in Montreal, I mean, it's kind of the cathedral of hockey, that in Toronto, and so you couldn't have dreamed it up better. And it sucks because one team has to lose, but in my opinion, it didn't suck that bad because it wasn't us. But it just, that competition is what you live for. And I thought that moment for the game, for U.S. hockey, for myself personally, for the guys in the locker room, was so much fun to play. It was a really tight team. That was the tightest team I've been on next to the Rangers in '94, and there's a reason. That's how you win, is having that cohesion. But yeah, you look back on your career and all you want to do is win next year and win next year, win next year. But then when it's over, you don't have, all you have is memories. And I'm like, I'm so fortunate to be able to play in something like that and have, all of us put it together and win. And in '94, the same thing. Some organizations, some players never get to taste it. And it's better than you can imagine.
How's your health? Like, just for our audience knows this, in '02, you suffered a concussion. You actually ended up what was a fractured skull.
Yeah.
And it was a real hard thing. Are you okay now? Is everything all right now?
Yeah, and it took a trip. I have to tell you, I started like, you get hit and you're like, oh, I don't feel particularly well, but it was like 6 months of kind of a slow downhill, and you're like, God, you went from, can I practice Thursday to, am I ever going to be the same? I can't explain. I played football as a kid. I've been hit in the head a lot. I don't mind contact. I like it, actually. That hit was just different, and something was different about it. And I feel great now, thankfully. It's funny though, ever since then, when I lift weights, and I'm 58, I don't lift a lot of weights now, but you still get lightheaded. You still have some repercussions, but I feel normal. And that's the really difficult part, is in the kind of days and weeks afterwards when you're trying to recover. The doctor's like, well, do you feel 100%? I'm like, God, I don't know what 100% is, because if you leave your car keys somewhere and you can't find them, is that because of a brain injury? Or if you wake up tired, like, what is 100%? When you have a knee injury or an elbow injury or something like that, range of motion and strength, they're measurable things. Just feeling that kind of hungover, terrible feeling. It's like you're jet lagged and hungover at the same time. Can't sleep, can't stay awake during the day. It's kind of, I've heard people go through it. I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And then to experience it, it's pretty sobering. But thanks for asking. I feel great now.
That's fantastic. You look fantastic, Mike. I can't. It's been so long since I had a chance to talk to you. I can't tell you how
Way
much
too long.
I can't, like, the memories you gave us, the moments you gave us, what you created in the game was amazing. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. One last thing I want to do with you before you take off. I want to play 5 fast facts. I'll ask you 5 quick questions. You give me the quick answers that come to your mind. All right? You up for it?
Yep.
All right, let's
ready to roll.
Time now for 5 fast facts with Stanley Cup champion, New York Rangers legend Mike Richter. Mike, best teammate you ever played with. Who was it?
Oh God, I'm putting my glasses on to look smart. Adam Graves was perhaps the most selfless guy ever. Glennie Healy, I'd put up there, but Adam, I mean, everything from fighting to filling the water jugs on the bench. The guy, there's no thing that man won't do, and he is as good off the ice as he was on it. Total hero.
Who was the best coach you ever played for?
Wow. Man, maybe I was so lucky. A great Canadian, Bruce Craig out of Toronto, went to Penn and played at Penn when I was a kid, and he coached my brother and I. And there's nobody that instilled the love of the game more than that dude. He was awesome and a great coach, but I think it's the intangible things that he really helped me with.
Who did you hate playing against the most?
A little guy named Mario Lemieux got the better of the Rangers a couple times. he didn't do much in his career. I loved playing against him, so I don't know if this is the right answer, but he was the single most difficult guy to play against. Wayne made everybody around him well, but he was on the West Coast. We didn't see him as much.
Yeah.
We saw this guy 6 times a year, and he's a goddamn nightmare. He could do it all, and he was amazing. I have so much respect for him.
After all your success in your career on and off the ice, what's the one piece of advice you would have given yourself if you could have told a 15-year-old Mike Richter something? What advice would you have given yourself?
That's a great question. I'm asked that a lot. I think I took it but late, and that is, you were gifted this opportunity. Never, ever take it for granted, because you'll be this old guy one day. And it might end after 10 years. It might end after 10 minutes, but you're privileged to play it. And you can never understand that at 22, but you damn well know it at 42, because no one's paying you money to go and watch you play. And in fact, my kids forbade me to play in any men's league that was televised, because it was insulting the family. Like I thought I was playing well. But honestly, I tell everybody, from my own kids in college to 10-year-olds, this is an amazing game. Play as hard as you can, squeeze everything out of it. Never, ever take it for granted, because you're one injury away, you're one tap on the shoulder where there's no more contract, and play it while you can, because you can't play it forever.
Final question. If you hadn't become a professional hockey player, I know you're an extremely successful businessman right now, but what career would you have chosen instead if you didn't make it in hockey?
Jeez, I don't know. I there's nothing that didn't interest me. I loved all sports. I did love? I wanted to be a damn astronaut. I love science. And, now SpaceX, who knows? We may be there before my time's up. But I did. I loved all kinds of science. It wasn't like I was so good at it, but it just intrigues me. So, you do what you love.
5 Fast Facts with Mike Richter, the man, the myth, the legend. Mike, thanks so much for this, man. I really appreciate the time. And I'm so glad. You look fantastic. You're doing real well in business. You seem like you're really happy. Thanks a lot for all this, man. I couldn't be happy.
Lucky man. Thanks for having me. It was awesome. I love going through this with you. Great show.
Thanks, buddy. Stanley Cup champion, New York Rangers legend, Mike Richter. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by Domino's Pizza and Athlete's Care. If you're watching the big game at home or hungry right now, Domino's has you covered. Check out the Domino's Mix and Match deal. Medium 2-topping pizzas, pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Any 2 items for only $8.99 each. Canada's favorite pizza at Domino's.ca. Athlete's Care is proud to be celebrating its 26th year, offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athlete's Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 24 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at overtimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. The Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. As well, please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at O-Time Podcast. Until next week, I'm Gino Retta saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the Domino's Overtime Podcast.